Surprising, really, the results of a survey released today by the Automobile Association, actually focusing on crime and safety. Tell us more about it. I'm joined by AA spokesperson Layton Beard. Layton, we used to talk to you about car accidents, but you've actually done a Q4 State of Security report. You interviewed 1,438 people. Just tell us a little bit more about the survey that you conducted between March and April. Is it usual for the AA to do these sorts of things as well?
Look, we did our first State of Security report in 2019, Sally, and that was on the back of us obviously launching a security product, a handheld panic device, and we wanted to gauge people's perceptions of crime in South Africa. So where this obviously differs from the official crime statistics that only the South African Police Services will release, is that this actually looks a little bit deeper and further into what people's perception of crime and their own safety in the country is. And that's the reason why we do this research. Obviously, we're an automotive organization, but amongst the things that we do is look after the rights of consumers. And part of that is obviously trying to understand what is going to work for citizens in terms of providing their own safety and security to them.
And more than 3/4, I think, of the people that you surveyed said that they'd been a victim of crime. I wonder if you could just break that down for us. Yeah. What type of crimes are we talking about, and over what period specifically?
So, I mean, this would obviously be over the last few months of 2022 going into 2023. And really what we're talking about there is housebreaking, armed robberies, some of the more serious violent crimes on a percentage basis show up less. But as you mentioned in your intro as well, violent crime is unfortunately still on the rise. I think the bottom line and the key takeaway from our findings, Sally, is that people's perceptions of crime is getting worse for South Africa. People are very worried about their own safety and security, and they're going to extreme lengths to ensure that they are safe. Some people are changing the routes they take to go to work. Many people are spending a lot of money on personal security at their homes, increased surveillance mechanisms, making sure that they've got, burglar bars and gates on all of their doors. So people are taking a lot of these measures to ensure their personal safety. And that's the key takeaway. People are afraid of becoming victims, but sadly, already many people have been victims of crime.
So it's no surprising then that 2/3 of the respondents say they just simply do not feel safe. Compared to when you started this in 2019, has it risen, this feeling of just not feeling safe? And this is not only sort of outdoors or, as you say, on your commute, but people are increasingly, it seems, feeling unsafe in their own homes.
Yeah, I think that is probably the one finding that is really very worrisome, is that many people, feel unsafe in their own houses. And that's really a place where you should feel safe and you should feel secure. And people, as I said, are spending a lot of money on improving security at their homes, but yet they still feel unsafe in their homes. For us, this is a major issue. And it speaks to the fact that, in our view, government and the South African Police Services are simply not doing enough to deal with crime or to deal with people's concerns around crime. It's a combination of ineptitude and perhaps even a lack of political will. But the fact of the matter is, and we can hear platitudes about how crime is being dealt with. The fact is that people feel unsafe, people are scared, and quite frankly, in our view, and the findings bear this out, government is not doing enough to deal with it, to the extent that more than 80% of people trust private security more than they do the SAPS. And I think therein lies a bigger story.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's move to a different kind of safety, and that's road safety, which of course is your core business, and the horrific news of these 5 little ones who died on their way to school. Now, from what Aisha Ismail told us in the last hour, they were on the back of an uncovered bakkie. It was raining, and it seems the driver must have lost control, hit a traffic light. But 5 of the 7 children died, 2 in hospital. But also what Aisha is telling us is that the permits that this driver was meant to have to transport children, no permits at all, it seems. What does this say to you when incidents like this happen? I mean, everyone is absolutely devastated. And, we get devastated time and time again, but things just don't change.
Well, firstly, let me say that in 2017, in May, the National Road Traffic Act, the amendment to Law 250 came into force, and that basically prevented people from carrying, people on the back of bakkies for reward unless that bakkie was covered up. So obviously, this person was driving illegally by transporting these children on the back of a bakkie. But I think the bigger issue is no permit. We don't know what the state of the vehicle was in. We don't know what the state of the driver in terms of him being legal on the road in terms of a license were. But it speaks to the bigger issue that we have. And let me just say to the families of the people involved in this, I mean, obviously, we grieve with them. This is an incredibly sad event that has happened in their lives. It's going to alter their lives forever. But the fact of the matter is, Sally, is that these types of things can be prevented with proper law enforcement. And there is a lack of proper law enforcement across the country. And these types of things that happen need to be dealt with much more effectively than what they are at the moment. So when a traffic law enforcer or when a member of the public sees something like this happening and traffic law enforcement is alerted to the fact that this practice is occurring, these things must stop and they must be stopped immediately. The fact that that's not happening, we see the result. Very, very sad day for the people down in the Western Cape. And in our view, absolutely preventable. Sadly, traffic law enforcement really needs to step up, across the country, because these types of things, unfortunately, will continue to happen, as you rightfully said, unless that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely heartbreaking, and even more so that it could have been stopped with proper law enforcement, perhaps. The other issue that we speak to you so often about is the fuel price. We know that it kicks in if there's going to be an adjustment at midnight on the first Tuesday of each new month. And that, of course, is next Tuesday. We'll be into June by then. We saw today that the rand came perilously close to 20 rand to the dollar. We know that it's taken a bit of a bad knock ever since those allegations around Lady R and what that ship was actually doing in Simonstown when the US ambassador accused South Africa of giving arms to Russia, of course hotly denied. Is our rand going to lead us to fuel increases next month?
No, I think at this stage we are still looking. I mean, middle of the month we forecast based on the numbers of the 15th of May that we were looking at quite significant decreases, and that was as a result of an easing of international oil prices to an extent, and then obviously at that stage, on average, the rand wasn't performing too badly compared to the previous month. The rand has since obviously weakened, to record lows. It's going to shave off some of those decreases that we were talking about. So the decreases are not going to be as significant. I think as it stands as of today, based on the numbers that we had today, we're still looking at around 70 to 80 cents for diesel and petrol, which is still obviously very welcome. The big concern, though, is as the rand continues to slide, what the impact of this is going to have on fuel going into July. And that's really going to be the marker. I think for now, it's not going to have it's obviously going to have an impact, but the real problem is going to be when we look at those numbers for June going into July, and there it may really have an impact. And obviously we'll wait and see what happens with that. But I think the good news for the moment, Sally, is that we are still expecting decreases. They may not be as high as what we thought they would be mid-month, but they will still be significant, in our view, still over around 65 cents a litre for both diesel and petrol. The exact numbers obviously we'll get later before the adjustment next Wednesday.
All right. Thank you so much for speaking to us this evening. Layton Beard of the Automobile Association. Let's now move